The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. This is program number 982. And it is coming to you on Monday, the 31st of August, 2020. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic affidavits. But before getting into the topic, a few preliminary comments beginning, as usual, with expressions of condolence to the families of all persons who have passed away quite suddenly in the last few days. And in particular, the family of Mr. William Farrell, father of Mrs. Zepta Williams. He died over the weekend. And just as I was coming into the yard of the TV station a few minutes ago before coming to tape this program, I was told by the widow of Mr. Dennis Haynes that he had passed. My condolences to you, Mrs. Haynes, and all the members of the family. And our sister, Reverend O'Dane, our condolences to you on the passing of your beloved husband. Secondly, I would like to draw your attention to an error in an article which I wrote and which came out in Searchlight last Friday. If you have the Searchlight, you will see on page 16 an article headed "In Memory of Emery Winston Robertson, Personal Recollections" by Panel R. Campbell QC. In the third column of that article, near the bottom, the date September 1972 has been printed. It really should have been September 1974. We had managed to catch that typographical error, but by the time we got on to the Searchlight newspaper office, they had already sent the erroneous article to print. I will read the context of it. As printed, this is what it says. The general elections, that is of 1972, produced a tie, PPP 6 seats, SBLP 6 seats, Son Mitchell 1 seat. Emery lost to Hudson Tanis, Mr. Sylvester 1. Mitchell and the PPP formed an alliance government which lasted for a few months over 2 nail-biting years before Mr. Joshua, leader of the PPP, torpedoed the alliance and brought the experiment to an end in September 1972. And as I've just indicated to you, that 1972 was an error. It should have been September 1974. The persons to whom I emailed the article would have got the corrected version of September 74. But I had emailed it earlier on to Searchlight newspaper. They got the uncorrected copy with 72. It went to print, and by the time I alerted them that the 72 should have been changed to 74, it was too late. Other than that, I commend the article to you. Final preliminary remarks. I am beginning to be worried about the turn of events in the United States of America, politically. It seems to me that in some places in the United States, they are getting very close to civil war. People have been killed, circumstances not yet fully known. Now, everyone who has followed events in the United States of America in recent months would know that there has been a resurgence of activity going broadly under the heading Black Lives Matter. That incident in which Mr. Floyd was killed by the policeman kneeling on his neck for some 8 minutes and 42 seconds, thereabouts, has been followed by other police killings. And many massive demonstrations have been sparked off in the United States, many cities. Over the weekend, there appears to have been several clashes at several demonstrations between the proponents of the Black Lives Matter agitation and supporters of President Trump. President Trump himself has sent out several messages by tweet which have been interpreted to be a call to arms. In other words, he has been encouraging his supporters to stage counter demonstrations against those put on by the Black Lives Matter organizers. And there have been clashes between supporters of President Trump and supporters of Black Lives Matter. I listened to Mr. Biden make an address today at about 1:30. And he has called, very wisely in my view, for an end to violence. He has indicated his condemnation for those who resort to any form of violence in the guise of marching or demonstrating. He has said it is not right for people to burn down buildings as a sign of protest, or to be involved in physical altercations with one another. Commentators, on the other hand, have said that it appears that the President of the United States of America is stirring up confrontation between his supporters and other persons as a means of ensuring his re-election. The theory is that if enough people feel that in the circumstances of conflict and violence, if enough people feel that Mr. Trump is the person best suited to handle that, on a law and order platform, then he may win the election. So in the coming weeks, and there's still some time to go before November when the polls are held, in the coming weeks we are likely to see an escalation of violence, clashes in the United States of America. Now, politically, it seems to me that the Democrats and their supporters should call off all demonstrations between now and election and should channel the energies of their supporters into getting people registered to vote. Because politics boil down to arithmetic in the end. It's a matter of who gets the majority votes. But it isn't enough to get a bare majority of votes as we saw in 2016, because Mrs. Clinton got approximately 3 million votes more than President Trump. But he won because he won in this crucial swing states as a result of the electoral voting system which they have. And one of these days I will go into that for you again. I wouldn't do it tonight. It will take up too much time. You see, demonstrating doesn't put you in office. But the votes of the majority are likely to put you in office. So the Democrats, whatever resources they have, should be carrying out day and night attempts to register as many persons as possible who are of the voting age and eligible to vote. And come election day, they should demonstrate their rejection of President Trump by going to vote against him. But every time there is a march and a demonstration and violence, it helps President Trump politically. So I hope the Democrats don't bother too much with marching and protesting, because every time they organize a march and protest, it seems as if people who are bent on violence infiltrate their ranks, carry out acts of arson, burning down buildings and burning vehicles and firing off guns to discredit those who are protesting, those who are marching. So the Democrats, in my view, would be much better off to register their people, get people registered, and on election day get them out to vote. Of course, those who use postal voting should make sure they vote on time. And Mr. Trump has already been doing what he can to discredit postal voting. But more about American politics on another occasion. Of course, the COVID is still wreaking havoc in the United States. And some people worldwide are demonstrating against the use of masks. Over the weekend, there were massive demonstrations in Europe, in London, in Paris, in Berlin, against the use of facial masks. People said it's tyranny. Government shouldn't be telling them what to do. And social distancing is not for them. They feel that it's part of a conspiracy to oppress them. All right. Affidavits. Excuse me. Now, English law was built firstly upon Roman law and increasingly local English common law, and then later on parliamentary laws, statutes. The foundation in Roman law has resulted in a lot of Roman words in the usage of the law. Now, in Roman times, the language of the law was Latin. I remember when I went into grammar school in 1958, Latin was a compulsory subject, and it was one of the subjects I studied right up to Form 4. Dropped it in Form 4. But in those days, I well remember people used to say, if you want to be a lawyer, you had to take Latin and pass it at the Cambridge O-level standard, because they wouldn't allow you in the olden days to study law unless you had a foundation in Latin. And those of us who started doing law in the 1970s, and I started in 1970, soon discovered why Latin was regarded as a necessary foundation subject for the study of the law. Many of the concepts of the law are based on Roman law concepts. And many of the words used in the law courts and in decisions of the judges and in the statutes passed by Parliament are Latin words. Many of the phrases are Latin phrases. And up to now, quite a few of the Latin expressions which came into the law in ancient days are still used in legal circles today. One such Latin word is the word affidavit, A-F-F-I-D-A-V-I-T. Roughly translated into English, it means he swears. Therefore, an affidavit is a document signed by a person by which the person confirms that certain statements are true, that certain statements are statements of fact and not just opinion or belief. But the format of that confirmation is important. Therefore, there can be no such thing as an oral affidavit. It must be, if it's not in writing, you cannot call it an affidavit. If it is just expressed by word of mouth, You can call it a pledge, a promise, but you can't say it's an affidavit because affidavit means a written document. A document in which somebody says, I am guaranteeing the truth of these statements, and I am signing to show my belief in the truth of what I have said in that paper writing. But to be an affidavit, we have to go further. It isn't enough that somebody writes something down on a piece of paper and signs it. The person has to swear on oath that the contents of the paper writing are true, or the person has to affirm. Affirmation is the process by which those who do not believe in taking the oath express their commitment to the truth of what has been stated. You know, some religions do not allow you to take an oath. Therefore, up to now, if you go to the court and you stand to give evidence in any matter before any court, the family court, or the magistrate's court, or the high court, or the court of appeal, on rare occasions when people have to go before the court of appeal, you are asked to state whether you will take the oath or whether you will declare an affirmation. If you take the oath, you hold up a Bible or testament and you say, I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I am about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Or if it is a document in writing, you hold up the Bible and you say, I swear that the contents of this document are true and correct. If you do not believe in the oath, because your religion forbids you from taking an oath, you do an affirmation. You hold up your right hand. Of course, even if you're left-handed, you're required to hold up your right hand. If you are one-handed and that one hand is the left hand, then you're allowed to use the left hand. But the basis of an affirmation, you say, I solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the contents of this document are true and correct. So either an oath or an affirmation by the person who is putting forward certain statements in writing, expecting those statements to be accepted as true. But we have to go further. A document is not an affidavit if you write it up or have it written up and you read it and you agree with the contents and you take the oath and you sign it, unless you take the oath before an official who is legally authorized to accept oaths or affirmation. So you can't go and swear a document before anybody and call it an affidavit. It has to be somebody whom the law has designated as a person whose duties involve receiving evidence on oath or an affirmation, Who are those persons? Well, in St. Vincent and Grenadines, persons like judges and magistrates, of course, who preside in a court. Persons like the registrar and the deputy registrars of the High Court. Persons like justices of their peace. You know, the JP justice of the peace. Persons like a notary public. A notary public is a person who has been appointed by the Chief Justice. Among other things, to confirm that certain statements have been made on oath or an affirmation before him or her. Or in some countries, you have somebody called a commissioner for oaths. In England, a solicitor of any standing can administer an oath or an affirmation. Now, affidavits are widely used in legal proceedings. In some circumstances, an affidavit can form the evidence that is given by a witness. But in all circumstances, it is meant to be a statement of truth. Now, the law allows you to give statements of opinion and belief. That is, you may not know something to be a fact, but you may genuinely believe the statement to be true. The law allows you to say that that statement represents my genuine and honest opinion or belief. But you have to say in the statement where you got that belief from, what caused you to believe that what you're saying is true. Therefore, you have to give the source of your belief. You can't just say, I believe something. You have to say why you believe it to be so. If somebody told it to you and you believe it, well, you have to say, I was told so-and-so. For example, you may say, I was told so-and-so by my barrister, my lawyer, and I believe it to be true. That's a statement of opinion or belief. Not a fact, because you may not be able to prove it yourself. Statements of primary fact are statements which you can prove by yourself. Things you have seen or heard or witnessed. And you can say, I know that is true because I was there. I saw the man take off the galvanize off the roof of the tenant's house because the tenant didn't pay his rent. Not that that is lawful, you can't just go and take off somebody's roof, but it is done all the time. So things that you see, you have seen or heard, you can say those are statements of fact as far as you're concerned. Things you are told and you believe, you could say these are statements of belief. So next time you're involved in any legal matter or you're asked to give an affidavit, then you understand that you must believe in the truth of what you are signing, having taken the oath. And bear in mind, the penalty for swearing falsely is conviction for perjury, for which you can get a long period of imprisonment. So if you sign an affidavit having taken the oath before a commission of oaths falsely, you can go to jail. All right? All right, well, that is all from this program of the law, and I hope you understand a little more now about what an affidavit, some people pronounce it affidavit. No, it's affidavit. He swears. All right? So, do have a pleasant week, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls. And may the good Lord continue to bless us all.
The Law and You. A look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You. Presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.